because it's got a lot of people talking, and we thought we'd do a little bit of a dive into it and see what's all the fuss about. So today with me, I've got Pepe. Say hello, Pepe, otherwise known as Fidgets. And we've got Nida. How are you doing?
Hello.
So, I thought I'd start with you, Pepe, since you know you're the gamer here. What are your thoughts on new Call of Duty?
Oh man, that trailer gave me chills because I was like, I didn't expect, like, I expected, sort of like where they make their own stories, because they had the Modern Warfare trilogy, and then you had like Black Ops.
Yeah.
And it had like its own little storyline, but this just came up like right in your face with actual history. I know you had, for example, games like Far Cry from Ubisoft.
Yeah.
And there hasn't been a Far Cry game that hasn't been met with controversy. Like for example, like when you had
Even the
Far
early
Cry
ones.
3,
I don't know if I can remember controversies about the really early ones, but I remember like from 3, 4 onwards, the series sort of started to pick up.
Yeah, especially with like number 5, a lot of people were like, "Oh, you had conservatives like, oh, this is an alt-right shooting simulator. You're just shooting alt-right boys." And then now we got number 6, which is like basically like Cuba.
Yeah.
And then you got all the all the commies over there just pissed off, like, "Oh, does this mean you're gonna be killing communists?" And then you got Call of Duty bringing out this
like,
slap in
yes.
the face, where he's actually talking about how.
So we're talking about Yuri Bezmenov, right?
Yeah, Yuri Bezmenov, and he's talking about how we're basically in a war. It's not like a traditional war where it's toe-to-toe.
It's extremely modern warfare.
It's almost some kind of Cold War.
Yeah, exactly. It's like
I think the implication there is that the Cold War didn't necessarily end, or that maybe there's a new one, because I remember at the end of the trailer it said, know your history or be doomed to repeat it. That's a pretty strong message for a game trailer.
Yeah, basically, because honestly, didn't that happen World War II? Where at first everything was all good and dandy, and then all of a sudden everything went to shit, the economy went to shit, and then afterwards you just
it's similar because it is similar because while things were doing well in some places, obviously Weimar Germany is an obvious example for not everything was going well. Like that was like your Venezuela of yesteryear, where you had hyperinflation, you had to have baskets of cash just to buy anything. Like a loaf of bread, you would need to get a basket, fill it with cash, take it to the shop, exchange the basket of cash for the bread, and you probably get less weight in bread than you did in paper money near the end there. It got mad.
And some people were also burning that to keep warm. It's very famous, these photos of children just huddling around like just like piles of money being burned because they needed to stay warm, and the money was essentially useless.
Yeah, essentially it's like if money was so worthless that you would actually pay that amount of money for the little bit of warmth that you would get from burning it, well then what's the it's like if you see a penny on the ground, do you bend over to pick it up, or do you go, that's not worth my time or like the effort it would take to exchange it in a bank to make it actual money? Or are you the type of person that sees a penny and goes, whoo, penny, picks it up?
Yeah, like it's just crazy how just things are just escalating. Now we just have two different groups just fighting it, just going toe to toe. And it's sort of sad, because it's
before we carry on, let's see.
We're all the same people.
Let's get Nidia to share her thoughts at the beginning. So
yes. this guy Yuri, right? The fact that the trailer itself has only clips from history in it, and it gives you something that you mentioned earlier. It doesn't give you any CGI. It's based on reality, and well, the
Yeah.
reality about history.
Yeah, that's
It's
something I
very
noticed.
bone-chilling.
Like, it just looked
It's
like
very
a
bone-chilling.
it, like, if I didn't know, like, if that, it's like an advert that has just a long running story, and then at the end it's like fucking Bill's soap or something. You're like, what? How did that relate to soap? Except, like, you can, like, it just feels like a video that was unrelated to a game until right at the end it was like, by the way, there's a game that this is related to. It's like car adverts, you know, where it's just like a man going about his day and it's like, what sort of man would do this? What sort of man? And then at the end it's like, the sort of man that would drive a car like this. And then it shows him driving away, and then it just shows the name of the car, and you're like, wait, what the hell? I got emotionally involved in this story. Why?
Or it's like these ads that we see like in Bangladesh. We see the most irrelevant ads for like sodas. It's like a whole storyline, and finally it's a soda or like
Yeah.
a cream or something. It's just exactly.
No, some of my
But, like,
favorite have
this
been
is
I saw a Indonesian advert about what was it? Like bug spray, because obviously in Indonesia there's a lot of bugs, and so a bug spray is going to be one of the best things for that. But oh, sorry, got a bit distracted there. But yeah, like the adverts for their bug spray are just fantastic. Like, this man-sized bug comes in and
Oh, I know those. Those are my favorite.
just chills on her couch, and it's like, no, leave. And he's like, I don't think I will.
they shoot the spray.
Yeah.
But I think that it was a very, how to say this? It's an extremely original format because we've already seen like the ridiculousness, and I feel like they kind of memed that a little bit, where they're like, oh yeah, you've seen this, but here, let me put it into a more serious setting. I think it was great. And the guy Yuri himself is he's quite a character from what I have been educated up to.
Hmm.
What are your thoughts on that, Sunny?
Yeah, it's he is very interesting. So, like, as you said, I noticed that, yeah, it had no CGI in it. I mean, I was expecting at some point it would have like a shot of, you know, one of the soldiers or some of the gameplay or something like that. But it wasn't even related to gameplay. It was purely about the background, the lore.
I mean, no, to be fair, there are some games where it's like the stories are just amazing. I think it was which one was it? The Last of Us. That's a game my husband always like. He always tells me that he loved the storyline and the ending was so twisted.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I feel like this is a combination of, you know, the gameplay where I think it's a one player game, right? It's a single player game.
It's Call of Duty's gonna be multiplayer.
Yeah, it's multiplayer, of course.
Okay. So, well, whereas
I
in The Last
suppose
of
there
Us
will
was
be
like,
a single player campaign for them to have a trailer like that, though. Like, they have to. I mean, they've been going off the idea of campaigns recently.
Because Black Ops 4 skipped the campaign and was just solely multiplayer and the battle royale. Which is probably why that game's dead, because I went over there and I'm like, man, no one plays this game anymore.
Yep. Oh, it's weird, that. So, thankfully, they've realised that sad people like me exist that only like playing single player games and the occasional multiplayer. Because, like, my
but
favorite.
One thing I'm worried.
Like, if I had to think story in a game, my most recent favorite example has to be The Witcher 3. Like, it's just so rich and deep with just characterization.
Shout out for Cyberpunk.
Absolutely. I can't wait for Cyberpunk. Every chance I get, I'm going to hype that game up. They deserve it, CD Projekt Red. Everyone should buy the Witcher series as soon as it's on sale, or just not on sale. Just give them money. Just donate money to them. That's my advice.
You know, one thing that I had only one concern of this game, and it's not of the game itself, it's the reaction aspect of it. So, you know how in the entertainment industry, we have people that make political statements or that do have a political platform, right? That this game itself, I feel like it could be it could be shat on a little bit because of the political aspect of it,
Yeah.
because obviously the war, it was all politics, and
Well, I
so
mean,
they could say
as Pepe said earlier, it's always been political, the Call of Duty series.
yes, yes, of course, but now they're going to say like I feel like a lot of people maybe become uncomfortable with the statements it's making because it hits a little bit close to home. Either you're going to have a lot of people agree with it, or you're going to have a lot of people hate it because they're insecure with the reality of it.
Yeah. I think also they've made a calculated move based on their demographics, because you do get companies that have been doing what's known as going woke recently. But there's also the adage that if you go woke, you go broke. But then what's the opposite of that? Go unwoke, get unbroke? Or like...
Be stupid and make money?
Or joke?
Fuck around and fuck around and find out.
Go woke until it's not a joke. We laughed at first, but afterwards, you know, we realized that it wasn't a joke anymore.
And that completes the first stage of demoralization of the American people.
That was perfect.
So,
but like, let's review what was said in the trailer itself, shall we?
So yeah, not in any particular order. Can you pick out one thing that was said, Nina, that you want to expand upon?
Oh my god, one thing, dude, when you look at the actual video from the trailer of the game, at the end it was talking about how Bangladesh. It was talking about Bangladesh and how.
Oh, of course. So
Yeah, this was just huge for me. I was always taught that the father of our nation, I think it was Mujibur Rahman, I think it was, yeah.
yeah,
Well, I forgot, but he was essentially assassinated by his own people, and I was told that America supported Pakistan and that India had supported Bangladesh. But what I did not know was that Bangladesh was extremely socialist. Like the leaders that were in the political movement itself were extremely socialist, and India had ties with Russia at that time.
yeah,
And the reason why America supported Pakistan is because they were against that. What I always knew was that America just wanted to make a move on to keep Bangladesh with Pakistan so they could, you know, continue their close relations with them. But that's complete. Now this history lesson that I've gotten from just this trailer of Call of Duty. It's crazy. I never knew that.
yeah. There's a lot of sort of untold history out there that just... it all happened, but it doesn't get taught. It's recorded and it's in history books.
Just like he said, we don't learn from our history. To bring up something on the side, I don't know if y'all have watched Space Force. Have you? I think it's Steve Carell. So in Space Force, they make some pokes at international politics and stuff that's going on right now. And one thing that Steve Carell says is, you know, people have forgotten what war looks like. People have forgotten the results of war, whether it's positive or negative. And that's why people are so easy to say that, oh, you know, let's go to war, let's do this, let's do that. We just don't learn from our mistakes. That generation dies off. We come up with a new generation, and either they don't learn it or they just don't want to admit that this happened, and this could be the same result could come above it, come up of it.
Oh yeah, I absolutely agree with that, because I don't know how much you know about like my politics in the past, but I used to be sort of a anti... what would I even have called myself back then? Because I wasn't really deeply involved in politics, but I knew what was shit and what I didn't like and what I should push against. Like, you know, corporate power and banking and that. And I went to the Occupy protests in London, etc., etc. And the biggest thing for me was the anti-war protests, because just war is horrible and destructive, and it was just going on TV just all the time when I was a teenager. Just updates about the Iraq War, moving on to Afghanistan. Oh, where's Bin Laden? Oh, he's somewhere. He's so bomb everywhere in between fucking Israel and, I don't know, Bangladesh, until we find this one dude, I suppose. And then like the reconstruction of Iraq and everything just got completely bungled. And that's when I sort of got disillusioned to the idea that Americans wanted to go around the world and install democracy and freedom, etc. Because they had a chance in Iraq. They decimated the country, reduced it to rubble, and then had a clean slate to build from. And within years, you had ISIS.
They didn't take advantage of that.
Yeah, no, they set it up with a puppet government. They went, you can have democracy as long as we control it. And so they set up a puppet democracy, which the people of Iraq didn't like, weirdly enough. And then ISIS spawned a few years later. So anyway, long story short, I've always been pretty anti-war. And for me, the left was the people that were like vehemently anti-war, like how dare you go and destroy innocent people's lives, whereas like the conservatives were always making excuses like, yeah, but we need to defend ourselves by attacking other people, and like, oh yeah, but you can't what other excuses? Oh, you can't speak out against the president. Oh, this is a time of crisis and we all need to pull together by putting blinders on. It's like, no. This is a time of crisis, so we need to be extra careful and think about things and not just follow the crowd.
What we're going to be doing, the effects of what we're going to be doing, the not only the effects, but like how the world is going to be afterwards. Yeah. Imagine with all the power that each of these the larger, more powerful nations have. Imagine if we have a leader that is not level-headed in each of these countries, this planet wouldn't exist anymore. What's the point of going to war if the result you're trying to achieve, while wrong, you're trying to achieve, it's going to decimate the entire world that you are trying to save or preserve?
Yeah, exactly, absolutely.
But I think there needs to be a balance between political diplomacy and complete pacifism, if that makes sense.
Yeah, we like, see, the way I see it is if everyone around the world had a purely defensive military, then no one would ever go to war. Because if you put all of your military might into defense, who's gonna fuck with you? Like, look at Switzerland, where everyone has a gun, and it's mountainous, and they've basically got a martial culture there, where the youth are, encouraged to take part in military programs, and it's sort of like, yeah, exactly. So, what would happen to America if America just said, we are going to not be isolationist, but in a military sense be isolationist, where they devote all the trillions that are used to extract, all the people's resources around the world and enable dominance. If they used all of that money to, I don't know, develop some sort of force field technology and then just coat America in a impenetrable dome of energy, why can't they do that? No, instead they have to go into weapons research. Obviously, I'm talking in ridiculous terms, but the point is, if we went into defense research primarily over weapons research, then instead of weapons always being one step ahead of armor, you'd have armor one step ahead of weapons at all times. And so it would be pretty difficult to attack people. But because we have gone so deep into weapons research and how to effectively get lethal force from one point of base to another, then
so let me bring up this scenario here, right? Imagine that what you're saying, where they're completely militarized and they've devoted all their time, research, money into militarization and nothing else in defense, right? So a country, let's name Bangladesh, if you go to Forever 21, if you go to H&M, if you go basically almost a lot of places really. Bangladesh is the capital for a lot of textiles, right?
Yeah.
Do you think that if America was so hostile, Bangladesh would be comfortable with doing business with them, with America and American companies? It's like if you screw up a little bit, this is a very benign scenario I'm presenting, but Bangladesh does not have the power to defend themselves, not even a little bit. It's a very young country.
Yeah, so they could.
And that would hinder our fashion industry.
Yeah, so they could, in effect. Well, Bangladesh has a military, though.
It does. Not that great, though. It's not even comparable to America.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, if a country has a military, then I mean, think about the Japanese. Do you know about the Japanese constitution?
Please do tell. I'm not very familiar with that.
When America dropped nuclear bombs on Japan and ended World War II, sort of the terms of surrender for Japan, because they were such a aggressive force during World War II, and they were like the last aggressor. After the European campaign ended, it was Japan that was still like, no, we're going to carry on and conquer the world. And so that came to an end, and the Japanese were forced to sign an agreement where essentially they made a new constitution that was penned by the Americans, part of which was they could only have a defensive military force. And so that is why Japan, even though it's a military culture stretching back to the Neolithic, you still have they haven't gone to war since, essentially, is what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because they have a purely defensive military. And guess what? No one's gone to war with Japan either. So it seems that they have just been excluded from the theatre of war. Because who the hell wants to go to war with an island nation of people that love their country and would defend it to death? And, you know, they've got military might. It's just all concentrated on a single island.
And it's true that's true, but you also have to look at the geological aspect of it.
Absolutely, yeah.
I'm sorry.
They have it better because they've got an island, as I said. Bangladesh, not so much. Kind of, it's not really landlocked.
More like a peninsula.
Yeah, exactly. So, it would be very easy to get invaded from the north or the west or the east or whatever. So
absolutely, no.
You would have to. I mean, the military that is in place pretty much does already act as a defensive force if it's not going to war. Just the fact that there is a military at all is going along with this idea. Like, so many countries have militaries but don't go to war. And you could even mention some of the actually neutral countries, like outwardly stated to be permanently neutral, which I suppose Japan might count as these days. Would you count Japan among the Scandinavian countries? Because you've got obviously Sweden, famously neutral.
Denmark?
I'm not actually sure about some of the other Scandinavian nations. I don't want to just walk out my arse. I'm going to have a look. What Scandinavian countries are neutral? But then you've obviously got Switzerland. What other countries worldwide, though? Not Europe. Any idea?
I'm trying to look right now. The Nordic countries, their neutrality.
Oh yeah. So
neutral,
as I said, this one might surprise you. Ireland.
Finland.
Ireland is a neutral country. Yes, Ireland. So is Turkmenistan.
How about Kazakhstan?
No, they love war.
The horse people.
Liechtenstein, Switzerland, and Sweden. So yes, as I suspected.
Wait, Monaco? How about Monaco?
Norway and Denmark are not actually neutral. Monaco.
No, Finland either. Didn't Finland have like connections to the Soviet Union? I'm not exactly sure.
Finland is neutral, yes.
The snow speaks Finnish, and that's when you start sweating.
Yeah.
So, do you know the story about how the Finns fended off the Soviets, Nita?
No, actually.
Snipers.
Not just snipers. So
just a guy that no, you want to hear
during
the crazy thing?
During winter, the only thing that can defeat a Russian winter apparently is a Finnish skier. So you had the Russians rolling into Finland, tanks trying to take over, and then the Finns would just come down skiing out of the fucking hills and throwing and they would just throw bottles of liquor that they had attached flaming rags to and set alight.
Molotovs?
Yes, the man who did this was called Molotov.
Oh, wait, that's how oh my god, whoa.
Thus began the legacy of the Molotov cocktail, because it was just a pun at first. It was like, oh, there goes Molotov with another one of his cocktails, wink wink. And that was how they would sort of like codename it, so that the Russians wouldn't just cotton on to what they were doing. But yeah, the neutral countries are Finland, Malta, Ireland, Japan, Liechtenstein, Switzerland, Sweden, Turkmenistan, and the Vatican City. Many other countries are also considered to be neutral. Yeah, they're neutral. They don't send out any soldiers, but they're like, we will win every war.
But yeah, I know with Finland, there was one sniper, aka the White Death. He wouldn't use a scope.
Oh no, he didn't, because he thought that the scope would actually give away his position because it could be reflected off. You see,
he would even put snow in his mouth so that way they couldn't see his breath.
What the fuck?
Whoa. Wow, that's some dedication.
No, there are some soldiers out there that you've probably heard about their feats in other forms, like their stories have been stolen from movies, TV shows, games. There's so many people out there that, what was it? During time of crisis, people just sort of pull out this energy and this dedication that never existed elsewise. But let's have a look.
Like what he would do is he would put like snow like in his mask, like the mask, so that way his breath wasn't able to be seen, because like obviously like when you're in the snow
and there's just a bit steaming, then it's probably a man.
Remember, there's other snipers too out there, so
yeah. But yeah, to bring it back around to the other point, that is why I've been just anti-war my whole life. But then when I see lefties now like excusing war, and then they, man, this seriously gets me. I can't even form a coherent sentence. But the people that used to, stand alongside me, being all anti-war, are now like, yeah, well, maybe a little bit of war's all right if it maybe just a little bit. But it's because
only if it's necessary, such as like when I think so. Germany was
they're talking about resource wars. They're talking about, these are lefties that are basically saying that if Trump says that we should pull out troops, maybe it's a good idea to stay because Trump is evil and bad.
Yeah, a lot of people are really pissed off about him withdrawing troops from Syria.
There is nothing worse to me than someone that just absolutely has no principles at all, and it's because they measure themselves in opposition to something they hate rather than being something themselves. Politics. Well, it's not even identity politics. That's just its own thing. That's its own mess. But I'm talking about people that are like, oh, if Trump believes this, then I believe the exact opposite, because he's the very embodiment of evil, and so everything he does is bad. And then you get these things where it's like, Trump ate a burger today. Trump breathed air. Oh, God, like, even, there's the common response to that, which is, Hitler was a animal lover and a vegan. Does that mean I need to beat my dog now?
Oh my god.
Because I wouldn't want equality. I wouldn't want to share any qualities with Hitler now, would I?
Hitler drinks water.
Yeah, absolutely.
Apparently, Hitler was a very loving partner as well.
Oh God, I better have awful sex from now on then.
I better abuse my partner.
Sorry, I can't pleasure you, for I have taken the anti-fascist path. Yeah, I bet that's the thing. That's yeah, go ahead.
That's like a common thing that I see nowadays. It's like, you know, how do I explain? Like when you see whether it's an unarmed citizen being shot or war or whatever it is, it's okay to denounce any wrong irregardless of your political identity. Wrong is wrong, and that's something that we don't recognize anymore because we're afraid of looking too much like the left or looking too much like the right or looking too much like this or that.
Yeah. I'm gonna start a shit storm here, but I don't care.
The thing is, because I was talking to my friend about like the stimulus and all that shit, and basically it's just Democrats and Republicans just fighting.
Oh no, that was like, awful. Like, I don't want to get into that too much because it's not really on topic. But
what I'm saying is, like we were saying, like
when they were like haggling over it, like no, we demand this.
Fighting and shit. Y'all are part of the same country. Y'all are on the same team. Why can't y'all just...
Yeah, it's meant to be a negotiation, not like a total war where one side wants to destroy the other. That isn't a healthy country.
Yeah, like, it's so dumb.
Like, if there's a two-party system, which I think there should be more ideas at play than just two. But, yeah, if there's a two-party system, it should sort of oscillate between two ends of the same pole. And so with America, you've got the two parties are supposed to represent positive and negative freedom, because they basically got to a point where they were like, we want freedom, but we don't know how best to achieve it because we're not omnipotent, we're not omniscient. And so the best way to sort of negotiate out that position, it seemed to them at the time, was to, you know, create opposition on each side and have them sort of, you know, hash it out over time. And that is what law is. The common law, precedent law. You're meant to sort of set a precedent and use that to, you know, set new precedents, and you build on top of itself until you've got law. So at the moment, though, going back to the Yuri Bezmenov thing, it seems that the poles are no longer between positive and negative freedom. From my assessment, it seems that you've got a significant segment of people that are pretty much anti-freedom, anti-America, not even anti-establishment. I'm talking about anti the idea of America.
Right.
So
I feel like the idea of America in and of itself is actually very scary to other people that don't, what's the word, that don't understand it. There are some great things about America, but they don't believe in the system, therefore they're afraid of it. Such as
I mean, you can just look at history and just look at all of the awful things American presidents have done over time and logically conclude that the American system is not all it's cracked up to be. Because you have got, on one hand, this idea of, like, you know, America as an ideal, and then you've got America the reality, which doesn't quite add up to it. And so then you've got people that are like, well, maybe it's that the ideal is broken. Maybe we need a new ideal. And I don't believe that's the right solution. I believe that the real root of the problem is the corrupt people in power willfully subverting the ideal. Like, they will lie to your face and tell you that they're for freedom and democracy and everything else, while in the back they're working to dismantle it. So it's not so much that the ideal doesn't work, it's that you've allowed traitors to slip into the midst, and it's very hard to deal with that, because usually they take down parts of the system with them as they go if you allow them to take power. power never cedes power willingly.
Yep.
Never.
But it's also a lot of the issues is like another reason is like sometimes people don't have that freedom. So they just rather be like, okay, no one has freedom, we're all equally miserable.
Yeah, exactly. There is a lot of that as well. There's a lot of traumatized people out there. There's a lot of people that have been abused. That they, a lot of our ideology actually comes from our upbringing, and we sort of apply post hoc rationalization to what we innately believe. And we may lie to ourselves and say that's not the case, but a lot of scientific studies would imply that, a lot of what we consider to be our politics is actually derived from just our position in society, our brain chemistry, who we surround ourselves with, and our upbringing, it just in general. And so if we were raised in a let's say a conservative Muslim household, we're probably going to grow up with conservative Muslim beliefs. And if we grow up in, the West and we pretend that we don't have a set of beliefs, because there's a lot of people in the West that believe that they don't have a culture, which is a strange thing to believe. All humans have culture. It's a very strange thing to believe that some people just don't have their own culture. Even if that culture is stealing culture from others. That's a culture. You can't deny that.
Cultural appropriation.
Not cultural appropriation if it's a cultural appreciation.
Cultural misappropriation.
Now, cultural appropriation does exist, but it's quite rare if you go by the definition, because what people say it is when you are taking parts of another culture, not necessarily with the intent, but with the effect of marginalizing or dismissing that culture's achievements. Now, while this may have been a thing in the past, I mean, we have the internet now. I don't understand how anyone could claim some other culture as their own and not be immediately called out by random people or members of that culture who can just comment and say, hey, I'm of this culture, that's my thing, here's proof, here's ample proof, like maybe in the past there could have been explorers or people that went to other cultures and just took cultural things and then went back and pretended they were some sort of pioneer, and then people were so associated that person with the culture instead of that culture, and then it comes in through the back door and the original culture is never quite appreciated. That could have absolutely happened in the past, but to claim it happens now, I mean it can, but how rare do you think it is in reality, Nida?
I think that the point that you bring up is very valid, because you're absolutely right. We have so many methods of obtaining information, so many methods of being able to verify information. I think that it would be excusable back in the day where there were when there were
less information.
Yes, and they were conquering other lands. Even then, it was very distinct, because we didn't have as much as mingling as we do today from the internet and whatnot. It was very distinct where people were from, right?
Yeah.
And so they were able to distinguish who and what everything was from. But the problem was that it was erased in history due to the conquerors writing history. They're not going to add that information, obviously, right? So nowadays, if I went up to someone, if imagine if I'm Bengali. Imagine I'm Bengali and I went and I put beads in my hair. But putting beads in my hair is not a part of my culture. And I said, oh, I'm a color. I can actually do this because I'm brown. That's not true. You can't.
For
I can't claim
context,
that as
what
part
culture
of my
are you referring to that does do that?
African culture.
I mean,
Yeah,
I thought I thought you might mean it was like an Indian thing. I was like, I don't remember that.
It's sort of like the dreads, Like
yeah, no, the dreads is something else, because dreads happen when you don't wash your hair and then you like scrunch it in a certain way. I'm pretty sure that a lot of people throughout history have done that, and you get like ancient legends from Ireland where they had like what's called fairy locks, which were essentially the exact same thing. But then you have these Afrocentrists that are like, no, it was totally different because they didn't have melanin, and so it didn't count. Like, that's
and no, another example works. To confirm what you're saying is in Bangladesh we actually have the kind of I wouldn't say they were kind of like nomads a little bit in our country. Yes, good job.
They're from India, and yeah, they're like the holy men, and they have big ass dreads, and they also partake in cannibalism. Like they
wait, hang on. Are these the people that are certain?
No, it's like a ritual. It's like
no. Are these the people that Reza Aslan met and ate brains with? Or was that someone?
I think I know who you're talking about. Reza Aslan, yeah.
Reza Aslan
not the same people exactly.
Is some
the culture
mad CNN contributor.
And the practices are not the same.
Is it a different group entirely that he met?
It's not entirely a different group. It's kind of like a subset of that group, I would say.
Oh,
but
okay.
They're very different.
Yeah, I imagine, because they didn't seem like holy men.
In my culture, the people that they were like nomads, and they would play music, and they were kind of like Sufis, right? They were Muslim, but they were nomadic.
Oh, okay, yeah, never mind.
So yeah, no, they actually also had one in India where they were Hindus, but even in India they would lock their hair. The nomads in Bangladesh would also lock their hair. They would lock their hair in like maybe like.
Well, you're bringing up an interesting point.
Locks.
What happens if people like move to another place, and that's not even a cultural appropriation injection? That's like someone coming from, I don't know, Britain to America and starting a tea craze.
Yeah, right? Yeah. It's a cultural injection, I would say.
Yeah. So, yeah,
but
carry
I think
on.
there's a very fine, like, the thing about cultural appropriation and appreciation is that people are pushing the appropriation too much, I believe, which creates a very scary ground to tread on, because that again leads to too much political correctness, and then
what I have seen as well is a one-size-fits-all solution, where I understand cultural appropriation if it's in the context of you're misusing sacred symbols of a culture, and you're like, or like you're mocking it, or like you're not treating it with the appropriate sort of respect that every other member of that culture would, you know. So if it's in that case, I understand, but it's... Oh, what was I going to say?
I believe that if it's religious or spiritual garments, adoration, whatever it is, that should not be disrespected, especially if you don't understand it. But if it's not something religious, I mean,
but what I was going to say was, some cultures would not like you to touch their very specific thing. Please leave it alone. But there are other cultures that don't have that culture. Like, they don't have the same...
Some cultures actually love it, like Japan, the Japanese.
That's what I was going to say. Like, whenever they see Western women dress as geishas, they're like, "Oh, hell yeah, they like us." Like, they just like it. They see it as flattery, and same with Chinese women with the traditional Chinese dress. So there's certain cultures that like it, and there's certain cultures that would rather you didn't, and so this one-size-fits-all solution where Western lefties have gone, well, they're foreign, so obviously they don't like it. I feel that is quite condescending. Like,
it's quite condescending because they don't actually take our opinions into play.
Exactly.
You know?
It's like, you don't know what's good for you. It's like, no. We want our culture to spread around. Like, the Chinese might be like, what do you mean learning kung fu is cultural appropriation? No. Eat our food. Learn our fucking martial arts. Spread Chinese culture worldwide. We want you all to know about it. So then you've got others that are like, hey, like we're just a little tribe chilling in the jungle. Can you not like publish our bullshit to the world, please? Like, could you leave us alone?
And there's another example I can give you, and this is actually something that recently happened. So, what happened was there was an online fashion website. I think it was AliExpress or something of that sort, right? I will not
Okay.
quote that it was AliExpress, but it was something like that. And what they did was they took the prayer mats that Muslim use and they labeled it as like a Greek ornamental like carpet or something. And it
Mm.
had the picture of the Kaaba, which is what we revolve around during pilgrimage in Hajj during the month of Hajj for
Yeah.
Muslims. And that I would say is disrespectful because you're using that particular picture that we use to pray on.
See, I would say it's different because if it's, what was you say, like it's a t-shirt or
No, it's a prayer mat. It's a prayer mat that we that we pray on. They mislabeled that, and like we actually very much respect the prayer mat. We always keep it in clean places, and we keep it on high places. We try not to keep it on the floor even.
yeah.
And so, if you're going to relabel that as a Greek decorative mat, that's like it's not even Greek. The picture is in Saudi Arabia.
Fuck's sake. Yeah, I know what you mean. That's just corporations just not caring about anything at all. But yeah, I see what you mean.
Oh, like how corporations be like BLM, and then just have rainbows everywhere.
And then
Yep,
yeah.
we support you. Wink, wink.
Yeah, and they do nothing else at all, and it's like, guys, we ended racism. Big round of
Just
applause.
by advertising just to sell.
Yeah, weird how that works if you just go along with the mainstream trends.
Yeah, like the civil rights movement didn't work at all. Just us advertising is what made everything
That's
go
right.
away.
Million Man March was just secondary to the Nike the fucking Nike inspirational campaign that changed everyone's minds on black people universally. They were like,
And then
wow,
the Pepsi ad with that one model, I think it was Kendall.
Kendall Jenner.
I do take
Kendall
the piss,
Jenner
but
like ended police brutality.
media has been very instrumental in some civil rights aspects as well. Do you know about Star Trek?
Yeah, of course.
I like
You,
Star Trek.
you know about what I'm about to bring up on Star Trek, though?
No, I haven't gotten into Star Trek. I just got into Star Wars.
So you probably didn't know that Star Trek was actually one of the most progressive shows of all time.
Really? What aspects of it?
Well, for one, they were talking about luxury gay-based communism before it was popular. And like they're talking about a free and open society where everyone's a pacifist, where, you know, rationality and this rule, and like they just go around trying to be nice to aliens. But on a more concrete level, they actually pushed some real boundaries with the show, including having the very first televised interracial kiss.
I'll say they didn't even
wow.
have religion. Like they were like all one people.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So like it was, if you think about it, it's very left-wing sort of ideals where it's like an idealized space communism where everyone just gets along and it just works and it's just fine. But the thing is, it was written by just progressives. I'm not talking about full-on communists. Whereas if Star Trek was written today, you would bet that they'd have half of it would just be like race and gender theory and whatever the hell else. Just divide people as much as possible. We were one people, but then we realized we look a bit different and we decided to not be one people. Much progressive, very good.
Very, very good, right? Absolutely.
So
Complete sarcasm, by the way.
yeah. So it's interesting to see a lot of these institutions that began in the 60s are very progressive, like Marvel. Like Marvel is going through interesting things recently with you know, Stan Lee passed away, of course. Rest in peace, Stan Lee, you piece of shit. Here he was a right bastard, but you know, he made great comics, so
He made some great, yeah, some awesome fucking content, man. It was
Yeah.
absolute art.
Ruthless at business, fantastic at art. But there's a lot of people like that. Like he was the Edison of comics, I've heard him described. But what was it? So yeah, Marvel. Obviously, a lot of the storylines in Marvel very progressive. You've got X-Men was famously progressive. You had Storm, obviously the very powerful black woman that is Storm. You had them led by a disabled man, and you could just go through every example, and it was like basically a ragtag crew of misfits, and that's the sort of trope that you get coming out past the
There was no Billy
60s.
Butcher.
Yeah, but interestingly enough, this was apparently, according to Yuri Bezmenov, to bring it back around to the actual topic, this was around the same time that the subversion was beginning. So I do feel like a lot of the progressive things back then might have been unwittingly part of the foundation, but I wouldn't say that civil rights was a mistake. Like, what kind of monster would believe that? Looking at you, far right. So
I know, right? But you know, also the civil rights movement. It's funny how it fell into that timeline that Yuri was speaking of.
yeah,
But because of the civil rights
because I
movement
believe
today, I
wasn't
don't
Martin
have to
Luther
go
King a
into a bathroom
socialist?
with a paper. What?
Martin Luther King was a socialist, wasn't he?
Yeah, yes, he was.
Yeah,
He had left-leaning views. Yes, and
exactly.
so
And
did
so
Malcolm X.
yeah,
And
yeah,
Frida
I suppose
Kahlo was
so.
a
Yeah.
communist.
And so obviously you can see in the 60s, I mean, if you think about, I'm just trying to put a timeline to this because I'm like reading over the Yuri Bezmenov stuff. And in 84, he said, subversion takes between 20 to 25 years. That's what I believe he said. And he said, we are already done with subversion. Now, he didn't say how long in the past it had been done for, but let's just round it down and say 80, right? So he's talking about from the mid 50s, potentially, the 60s. There were, I suppose, what was he talking about? Was it professors at that time? Or
Oh
media
yeah, how professors
personalities?
are indoctrinating kids and all that shit.
So that might have been the very first round of it. But it wouldn't have become a thing in American culture until 20 years afterwards, where you get like the people growing up and starting their own businesses and whatever that were taught by these professors.
I forgot the name of that phase. Um, what was it? Where it was like the degradation of not society but food weakening or something like that.
So let me read you out the stages. I've got it up here. I've got so
Destabilization?
first
No, no,
goal
no. It's
is
going to be the third one.
demoralization. Second
No,
step
so
is
no, it's demoralization. That's the first step, and then the
yeah,
second step is destabilization, and where it's he was talking about how making the American people unhealthy and basically weakening them.
mm,
And this stage itself started, I think, earlier than 1984, because do you remember the boom of TV dinners, and then slowly, like everything becoming hormone based and preservative and all of that, everything is artificial. That
yeah,
is something that really hit home, because one thing is that if you look at our foods, right? Our foods are very, very unhealthy. You see, Americans have terrible diseases. We're not the healthiest people, even though we have access to so much. And if you look at me, someone that's
Better not
born and raised,
insult our Lord and Savior McDonald's.
I was exactly about to do that.
hey,
McDonald's
Boy,
and Tyson.
boy, I'll tell you what.
So, so if you look at me, a born and raised in America Bengali girl, and a Bengali girl that lives in Bangladesh, that was born and raised there, you'll see very, very large differences between our rate of growth and how our bodies turned out.
yeah,
And it's pretty scary. McDonald's is infamous for its unhealthy choices of food, but you also have to look at how that ties into our lifestyle. Our lifestyle is so rigorous. It's extremely fast paced. And because of that, we need ease of access to food and quick, fast, cheap food. And that's
Yeah.
what it catered to. And in turn, what we didn't look at is what was happening to our bodies.
Well, that's the thing as well. Like, it was American working practices that enabled that as well, because you could have had freedoms, worker freedoms, but instead you had the corporations getting in first and getting like corporate freedoms. So, and then obviously they can use their corporate money to ensure that that stays in place. And then the people have no idea it's going on, so they don't even attempt to fight back.
Yeah, not only if they don't know what's going on, but they just don't have the time to. In complete honesty, they just don't.
Exactly, that's what I'm
If you
saying.
look at
It's
like an average
no
American,
time at
how
all.
much
So
time?
it's very fast paced. You have to get up, go to your work, do work, go home. But then when you get home, it goes from fast paced to sedentary. And a lot of people just sit around all day watching TV or, you know, browsing the internet. And the people that don't do that are like labeled as, you know, sort of fitness geeks or whatever, where instead of that just being the normal thing that you do where you just keep yourself healthy, it's seen as a hobby to do so. But in reality, you shouldn't need gyms at all. Gyms are another symptom of a weak society. It's a service that helps to supplement the weakening population. But, oh, what's that? Your average life isn't giving you what you need to be healthy and strong? Well, why don't you put in extra hours at this place and supplement your health with these activities? Whereas in reality,
extra hours and extra money.
Yeah, and it's because we're all like office workers now, and we're not utilizing our bodies as much, and so you know, there are people that go to jog to work, and then they'll use their lunch break to go to the gym, and then, you know, they're supplementing their sedentary lifestyle by offsetting it with as much exercise as possible, and that is a healthy approach to things. But a lot of people, and I totally feel for this sort of point of view, a lot of people do feel trapped in the, you know, the endless grind where they don't feel like they can make any significant changes, or they're working paycheck to paycheck, or they just feel weak from lack of sleep and lack of good food. And where are they going to go to find some? Well, you know, they ended up having kids really early on, and then they just don't have money now for themselves because things are just very expensive.
Back to like the first part where it was like here he was saying demoralization. If you look at demoralization, you can see that it's, if you just look at the lifestyle itself, we don't have a balanced lifestyle. We don't have any focus on our health. And then comes the, you know how you said, oh, having babies too early, right? We also didn't have access to great healthcare at one point, and if we did, the
Yeah.
laws tried to get into the way.
Well, I'd like
Contraceptives
to.
were not always available.
I'd like to say that that's not the core issue. That's another symptom.
It's a symptom, yes.
Now, no. But what I mean is, it shouldn't be an issue to have babies whenever you want, but the economy prevents it. You can no longer survive on one income. You need to. You need to, because inflation has got to the point where, you know, even on two stable jobs, it's still difficult to save up money and prepare for things later in life. And I know a lot of people that were sort of born in the 90s that are struggling to make down payments on their first house or whatever, and they feel like they're going to be caught in a rent cycle for the rest of their lives. And, you know, a lot of them do feel left behind. And I do feel for the Zoomers as well, the latest generation coming up. Like, do they even have any notion that one day they might buy a house, or is that just a fable to them now? I'd love to hear from anyone, you know, born in that generation, Does anyone do any Zoomers here actually own a house or have a mortgage? That'd be interesting to hear
It's
from.
hard to. It's very hard for them to. Even me being born in the 90s, I don't even know
Yeah,
if I'll
I'd
be
say you're in
renting my
between
entire life or buying.
me. I'd say you're in between me and Zoomers, and yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? It's not easy. I've just been saving up for a long time, trying to get a little nest egg together so that I can actually get a house properly and a mortgage and all of that stuff. But it's not easy because you need certain, it's a big chunk of change that you need saved up in order to convince the bankers that you're not just some vagrant or something.
Right.
Pepe?
I'm listening.
Pepe?
But how about you? You seem like to be of the generation around Sunny. What would your take be on this?
I mean, I've been also trying to do the same shit, is save up and then probably start a business.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's the
that
thing
way
that
I have something to go, and as well as probably investing in a property and then renting it.
yeah.
To at least have some sort of income. Um, because it's really difficult to start something nowadays, especially with everyone just going ape shit and cancel culture and shit. It's really hard to start something because if you don't go someone's way, then people are just gonna go
Well,
around talking shit.
I actually
And it's
believe that people will reward bravery. If you go up against these people, then they will financially reward you, because even if they are not brave enough to do it themselves, they want to advance the voices that do. And don't ever forget, they're in the majority. The vocal minority are the ones that are shouting people down, going on Twitter and calling for people to get cancelled and all of this ridiculous stuff, right? So the majority of people just feel that this has gone too far. And so I've seen a few projects recently where I don't know if you've seen, there was a point I was going to make about Marvel, which was that after Stan Lee died, it seems to have jumped the shark, and they're now putting out superheroes that, I mean, as I said, they've put out progressive superheroes in the past, but they've decided to wokeify it. And so you've got just the most ridiculous superheroes you've ever seen. You've got one that's a teenager that can, what was it, connect to the internet with their mind, and it was like, really?
that's so unoriginal because
Yeah,
you
but
already have people that are able to do
no,
that.
you've already got technomancers that are way cooler than this character. But get this, they got their superpowers when they fucked around with their uncle's experimental internet gas.
What?
I
So
am.
they took a fat rip of their uncle's vape and bam, superpowers.
Like, oh my god! What did you put in that? No, Billy, that's internet. Don't smoke that. What? And then he had superpowers.
Oh, it's like,
Fucking.
oh, time to cancel my 8th grade teacher.
There's another one where Nida, have you seen these new superheroes? This might be a little bit of a segment on its own. Jeez.
Which new superhero are you talking about?
The new ones that Marvel did. I'm going to send you a link, and you're not going to believe this. And we're going to talk about this for a bit, because you're going to like this. Because we may be on radio right now, but try to describe what you see, okay?
All right. Let's see it.
Are you ready for some experimental internet gas activities?
Yes, please. I don't see it though.
I'm still trying to find it. Where can I find it? So I just want like a list of them, really. But I don't think I'm gonna find them. Maybe on the... Is there pictures of them? Please be pictures. Oh, there's no pictures. The Wikipedia article on them's useless. Da, 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 da. Alright, let's try this. Oh, come on, please be a full write-up. Yes, it is. Alright, I'm sending you this. Fantastic. So, these are the new warriors. And... oh, I'm just going to stick it in Discord.
Wait,
instead
new warriors
of...
or new mutants?
No, they're called the new warriors. And
New warriors.
Let me set...
warriors come out and play.
That's right. So, need to click that link in a Discord. You see it?
I do not yet. Let's see, 1 second.
Don't.
1 second.
In mod chat.
Is it in mod chat?
Yes, it is.
Oh, wow.
Just click it. Don't. Just click it.
I did. I only see their pictures.
If you scroll down, it has a little write-up about them as well. Wow, this website.
Safe Space and Snowflake?
Yeah, no, these are real, Nida. Describe them for the audience, please. Describe the female. No, wait.
The female? I can't really
Which one's the female?
The female is Snowflake and Safe Space is the male. The Snowflake, both their hairs are the same length. And they both have colored hair, and their hair and eye color coordinate as well. You can't really tell the difference in them.
Yeah, the male
guy
has
is just
a little bit more muscle.
Muscular, but
yeah,
the same almost exactly.
Oh, and you're not going to comment on the fact that they've obviously purposefully just done a straight swap of the traditional gender colors, like, oh, the woman is blue and the man is pink. Isn't that crazy?
I just noticed that. God.
Oh, man.
Wow. And yeah, no, I see. Is this a response to everything or what is it?
No, this is the direction Marvel wants to take.
Yeah, that's why I've always leaned towards DC. And,
yeah, I've always preferred DC, and this kind of solidified it for me.
No, there's another one. There's Dark Horse, but there's also, is it Icon?
Also, DC DC does this stuff as well, you know. It's not. Oh man. So.
But they overdo it, because I've seen where they put certain shit, but they don't go overboard.
So, Snowflake can materialize blue snowflakes that she uses as shurikens, and Safe Space projects a pink force field.
That's cute.
Are you into it yet? There's another one, looks like Ben 10, a meme-obsessed super teen who was infected with a experimental internet gas.
Internet vape.
Oh man, then there's just some like unremarkable edgy goth vampire character, and then you have the overweight superhero who gets powers from a magic backpack, who people have been calling Fat Dora the Explorer.
That's what I was about to say.
Oh boy.
Oh, that's some
like just
that's oh man, the audacity, and just like, you want people to take you seriously, but you just be pulling some dumb shit.
Yeah, people are literally like, but I wanted a new Spider-Man comic, and they're like, no, you must watch this. And you can bet that the villains...
You have Spider-Man at home, and then it's like Spider-Man at home.
Oh boy, it looks like it was like made... Oh man, but if you watch some of the interviews of the people that wrote about this, I've put myself through this myself. Like, actually, half of them say that they were never Marvel fans when they were kids. They never actually liked Marvel. And this project was about them trying to take Marvel in a new direction that they would be happy with. Like, outrightly say this. Like, people are like, oh, so what comics did you like growing up? And they're like, I didn't really like comics. Comics are kind of awful, you know? So I thought I'd make good comics.
Comics are pretty gay, but I want to make it gayer.
I mean, like, you know, Marvel is like one of the most progressive companies of all time, but it's not good enough. We need to go like super, super far, far to the other end of the pendulum. Just push it as hard as you can. Well, what's the next iteration after this? You're just going to have like just a single beige character that is just like disabled as every identity you could think of, and is just like the ultimate identitarian, like a shape-shifting superhero. That would be perfect for them. I am anyone.
Another thing that I feel like, if they take this route, they might lose a little bit of their fan base, because their fan base is going to be like, okay, this is becoming really weird.
Oh, Nida, have you not heard of Comicsgate? This is happening, of course. Like, this is, I don't know if you've heard about the new comics that are getting put on Kickstarter and are selling better than actual Marvel comics. And I'm not talking about just this obviously pants one. I mean, like, actual new releases of big old heroes, and these new comics, like the faith in Marvel has dropped to such a degree that people are actively going out of their way to avoid Marvel and fund new things. And
yeah, and you got the Avengers video game out. A lot of people are like not even hyped anymore for it.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff like this, like sports. You would think that the first season of sports, whatever sport I'm talking about, would be quite big after all of this corona nonsense. No, you had the NBA playoffs in America, I believe, and that was like its lowest season ever. So they were expecting heightened viewership. So the fact that they got even less than average is very bad news for them, because it means that people are just going off sport in general, or that they're just not interested in their form of sport, or like I've heard people complaining about, just the institutions behind sporting, like, and some of I mean, like FIFA, for instance, and some of the bigger sporting channels, like you've got ESPN. A lot of people have been turning it on, and they're getting politics shoved in their face. And this all wraps back around into the Yuri Bezmenov thing, where he's saying that it will be so pervasive that people won't be able to escape make good decisions about their own lives, because they'll just be like, inundated with this other information. So we've reached a point now where people have just lost faith in their most favorite institutions. Their comics that have been infiltrated to such a high degree that the output is so bad that people are actively going against them. And these Kickstarters are doing really well. These are like ex-Marvel artists have started like dropping off and starting their own things, and being like, hey, I'm one of the original artists behind this comic that you love, and I'm against all of this stuff. So, I mean, along with the fact that we are talking about the fact that the trailer was just released today, the larger teaser trailer after that other one, where, it seems to be entering the mainstream consciousness that this is a real thing. Because you've had them pushing for so hard. You've had them pushing so hard for so long that people are now starting to question what's going on. And now you've got other parts of the mainstream providing answers. Like, oh, you want to know what's going on, do you? Well, this, dear Call of Duty player, this is what's going on. And you've had the lefties for a very long time deriding Call of Duty players as like gung-ho muscle bros that are obviously unempathetic and don't care about people, and obviously just want to get on their dumb little game machine and call teenagers the N-word. That's the Call of Duty player to the average leftist. So is it any surprise really that the Call of Duty developers at a certain point went, you know what, screw you, through you and your reviews and your standards and everything else, we're going to make a game that we want that hits so hard you're not going to be able to do anything about it.
It's like when SJWs tried to like mess with I think Anita Sarkeesian tried to fiddle with Cyberpunk, and that sort of killed her career.
Yeah, she was like, "Oh, it's not." Oh God, like her career was dead on arrival. But yeah, that was the whole Gamergate thing. Each of these things, each of these waves, seems to be these malicious communists finding out that a new area exists in reality that they haven't yet infected, and so they then go to those spaces, pretend to be interested in the thing, and then like, oh man, I'm a really big fan of this thing, but I stopped reading because blah 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 doesn't have enough this and that and that and this and that. And like, oh, I stopped reading your comic after you didn't make a statement on BLM. Like I've seen a few lefties going around like trying to strong arm companies with that one. Like, why are you silent? Silence is violence, don't you know? But then on the other side of the issue, you have Netflix, who have been making questionable decisions as of late regarding child exploitation, let's say. Now, if silence is violence to a leftist, then what is making a statement saying that they don't want to offend anyone and so they're not making a decision one way or the other? When, of course, I'm talking about their new release, Cuties, which shows multiple prepubescent girls on the sort of publishing material for, I don't know what you call it on, it's not a DVD cover, is it? It's just the images that they use on Netflix, the marketing material for it, as prepubescent girls twerking and making all sorts of suggestible positions in obviously sexualized clothing, where like low cut tops and skirts, and it's just, when I looked into this, I just thought, why have Netflix released this? But then it's a case of, okay, well, if a filmmaker made this, then they made a deal. Like, they shouldn't have like released it, but maybe they just released as is. Not the case at all. I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce the original French release, but it was totally different sort of marketing material, not sort of marketed around the idea that they were twerking, and it was like so free and inspiring. Neither. The film is actually about a Somalian Muslim girl that tries to rebel against her conservative Muslim parents by joining a dance crew, and she actually discovers that the girls are being way over sexualized, and by the end of the film I haven't seen it, I've seen just like someone talking about it, but apparently it's a critique of Western feminism. And then Netflix sees it and goes, oh yeah, those girls are sexy, and then calls it Cuties instead of the original French name, puts all the girls on the front, and proves every point the original Somalian woman director made.
Oh, she's French Senegalese. But you know what's the
Senegalese,
crazy thing?
I did not know that.
It won an award in
Sundance, which was started by
I think one of the co-founders,
was
or
convicted paedophile, yes.
Yeah, and he recently got arrested for chasing kids. And
so yeah, when you put it all together, it paints a very nasty picture of what's going on, where you've got like, why are these things coming out that are sexualizing kids? Now, another big one, the other big controversial one, I'm probably going to take a lot of flack for saying because a lot of people like it, is Big Mouth. That show is just, why does it exist? Are you aware of Big Mouth, Nita?
People are like defending like Netflix and shit, and then using the fact that like the director is French Senegalese, so they'll be like, hey, there's nothing, like that's also what sort of I found like a bit weird. You
No,
know.
but what I find weird is the fact that someone in the Netflix offices sat down and made the promotional material, decided to call it Cuties, decided to make the description, like joint. I can't remember what it was originally now, but it was like you read it and you're like, oh, she joins an inspirational twerking crew or something. It's like, ugh.
And to explore their femininity and
Yeah.
all sorts of weird shit.
Yeah, it's just why?
Just some like, you know, some girl power feminism shit.
What I found funny though was 4chan themselves actually said no promotional material of Cuties is allowed to be shown on 4chan. Netflix might tolerate this shit, but we don't.
4chan, it's 4chan itself is. I don't know if I like them or not. They've done some pretty cool shit though. Not gonna lie, and they have denounced a lot of the things that other platforms have not.
4chan is not a single group of people. 4chan is anyone that wants to be anonymous at any time on the internet. They can go there and take part in 4chan.
Deep web you can be.
Yeah, it's the closest to the deep web you could get without getting your ass wet.
Yeah.
So what stage are we on now? So let's do a quick history, I suppose, because what I was trying to do was let's go by what he says, how long he says it's going to take, and try to paint a picture of where he thinks we should be now and whether we're at that stage. So he says that demoralization happens over 20 years and that he was saying this in the 80s and he said it was already complete. So I'm going to take this to mean that from the 60s onwards, which is interesting because that's when you have the countercultural revolution, of course. But then further to that, you've got the economic depression of the 70s. I have to wonder if that's in any way related. And then the process of destabilization. So destabilization describes a rapid decline in the structure of a society. Now, I think that this wasn't able to be enacted immediately. Like it didn't happen by the 90s, but several key points had been made. Like several events happened in the 80s, which would then, you know, change America for the worse. But destabilization, and then third stage is crisis. So
we've been through how many more? How many more do we need?
So yeah. So there's actually, he actually talks about the George Floyd riots. So this is a new article here. And then fourth stage, normalization. Now, I think that we will be, you know, seeing a lot of these stages happening simultaneously. They never quite stop. It's not a defined stage.
Happening simultaneously as well.
So,
well, for one,
there may be crisis and normalization happening at the same time. You might be even normalizing the crisis.
Are you talking about COVID?
No, I'm talking about continuous protests, sort of like, you know, like France, where when did France start protesting?
Oh, they've been protesting for a while. Like I think probably since 2018, I think.
Yeah, well over a year. Well over a year. So you don't want to be in that stage where just nothing ever gets done and the people are just continuously unhappy, you know, and they're just continuously fucked around with. But at the same time, you do have what's the first step? Demoralization, destabilization, and crisis and normalization happening simultaneously and at different stages.
Do you guys think that any other first world country has had as many crises as America has within the last 2 decades?
No. And that's because a lot of them are manufactured or allowed to happen because it's all part of the process.
That's what I'm saying. I don't see, that's the thing. Like, I'm skeptical of what he's saying, but a lot of what he said has been proven correct, true, like just factual. It is true. It's like every year America has something going on or multiple things going on at once, and because
and it
it's
seems to be ramping up.
Yes. So basically, it was one thing maybe every 6 months. Then it became every year. Then it be every year. Sorry. Then it became every 6 months. Then it became monthly, and then it became like we always have something or something going on. I think that might be a part of the normalization process itself.
Yeah, and COVID as well. I mean, regardless of where it come from or the conspiracy theories around that, there's no doubt that the powers that be are exploiting a crisis. They exploit every crisis.
No, but it's like the crisis is being exploited on both sides. Neither side of the political spectrum is uh is innocent of this. The left, they're kind of, they're actually using fear mongering with the COVID thing. Fear mongering in a different way, where it's making you more afraid of the virus itself than you should be, I think. And then there's the right that's politicizing the safety that we need to use against it, and it just doesn't make sense. Either pick one or the other. You guys can't just use two different sides of one issue.
Mm-hmm.
What's real, it's the left is they're being more conservative in a really weird way, if that makes sense, like being more conservative in safety aspect. Does that make sense? Whereas the right is being more liberal, and or not exactly liberal, but
no,
no,
you are
they seem
using
like
the
they're
right terms. You are saying that well, you're not using the precise right terms, but I understand completely what you mean, where the left are the ones saying we need to preserve as much life as possible, take all these measures, make sure everyone's safe, right? And that's usually a conservative thing to do, whereas the left are like, I am going to take risks, I am going to innovate, I don't care if this new invention disrupts something, old man. That's meant to be left. But then you've got, on the other side, conservatives that are, as you said, more liberal in that they are more freedom oriented, where they're like, screw your fucking stuffy mask. I don't want to wear no mask. And that's the freedom response. But it's funny how it switched. Exactly. It's funny how it switched from about
and
20 years ago.
We already had a switch early on where the Democrats and Republicans changed their platforms. Was it after Lincoln, somewhere around that time?
I think it was after. No, that wasn't even after Lincoln. That was during the 60s.
60s, okay, yeah.
That was so 60s. So yeah, it was after Lincoln.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely after Lincoln. But yeah, it was during, I think, the 60s. I think it was after Martin Luther King was assassinated. It was definitely after that, and then that's when you had like the Dixiecrats and all that shit. But yeah, it be like that.
Wait, what do you mean by a Dixiecrat, Pepe?
Not a
the
Southern Democrat.
Were the racist Democrats from the South called the Dixiecrats.
Yeah.
Oh wow, I learn new things every day.
Yeah, look into them.
Yeah.
They're
those were the ones that wore the hoods and all that shit.
Yeah, that's the thing that a lot of the people on the right also comment on, is how the left is actually more racist than the right. I don't know how true that is, though.
I mean, when you go with
I don't
Malcolm
think
X,
any one side is any more racist or not racist than any other side. Although there might be certain types of racism that are more aligned to certain ideological predispositions, let's say.
There you go. Yes.
Here's the difference between left and right. The right are more open.
I don't know if that's true.
Prejudice.
Okay.
They act like your friend, but in the same time they work against you. That's why Malcolm X, even though, yeah, he was a bit more extreme than Martin Luther King and, all that shit, he was right about one thing. He was, beware the white liberal. They'll act like your friend, but they're not. They're
and he's
there for
talking
their
about this
own
specific.
interests.
Yeah, he's talking about this specific subsection that he's noticed that will tell you to your face, like, "Oh, I'm totally anti-racist. I'm this and that," but then they'll like make fun of you behind your back, or like they'll
I mean,
advance policies that
Joe
don't
Biden and
actually help.
Kamala.
Yeah, exactly. Like, oh, we're totally progressive,
here's
guys, but
how
let's
they rank.
incarcerate all of the weed smokers. Oh, what's that? You complain about it?
When she was a prosecutor, yep.
And Joe Biden, didn't he not partake in the segregation laws? Did he
He
not
also
partake?
was against the LGBTQ community.
Yeah.
Same with Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton.
Same with
freaking
Obama.
hated gay people.
Same with Obama. You know who the first president in history was to be pro-gay before their election?
Was it Ronald Reagan?
Donald Trump.
I had Donald Trump. Oh no,
And
Ronald Reagan.
They can't give him that, though.
Reagan was about gay.
They'll never give him that. But it's true.
It's just there's so much hate rhetoric for Donald Trump that they kind of just dismiss everything good that he ever did.
Yeah. Or might do. Or that, as I said earlier, everything he does is bad by definition.
Orange man bad.
As I said, like, hang on.
Yeah, but basically it's just, when I see people that they're like, vote for Biden, like doing the lesser evil, like they're basically doing the same shit that they did on 2016.
Yep.
And it's like, if people actually voted, they're like, oh no one's gonna vote third party, and it's like, yeah, no one's gonna vote third party because you're not voting for third party. Maybe
no one's gonna vote for third party because we've always all been brainwashed to think that third parties never ever win.
Oh, you know what it is? No one votes for third party. No one votes third party because anytime anyone's like, I think I might vote third party, these wankers come out of the woodwork to be like, why would you vote third party? Why would you throw away your vote like that? Why are you doing that? If you're not against me, you're. They've not.
Like, yeah, and they don't realize they're working against their own best interests.
It's like a hive mentality. Like, you got these people with,
they're tribalistic as well.
Yeah, and it's like, I was looking at an article and it was basically like a white lady is trying to fucking eat her food, and then all these fucking protesters come.
Oh, you cut out there.
Like, yo, BLM, like, and I remember students. Okay, let me.
BLM protesters came up to her and said,
and she literally says, "Is like, hey, I've walked in the protest with these guys. I'm all about it. I'm just trying to eat. I ain't gonna raise my fist." And people are just like swarming her, and it's like, bro, like I remember even before, like I think around 20, like when BLM was like starting, like you had students do that in fucking campuses too. Like they would go around and like, yo, why are you not chanting? Sort of like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? It's like that hive mentality. And it's like one of my friends who's black, who's black, but he's like really pro BLM. Even he said like, I really hate it when people randomly say BLM out of nowhere for just no particular reason. Like it's just really fucking cringy. Like, yeah, we get it. Okay, I agree.
And the problem is that there's a lot of people incorporated within the platform that are being used to go against the platform, like the people that are mostly, I would say, communists. They are trying to join it. It kind of reminds me of what happened to LGBTQ. People that were trying to normalize pedophilia were trying to get onto the wagon, and LGBTQ had to immediately, very vehemently shun them because they were trying to say, "Oh, love who you love," on the same platform as them.
But it's quite ironic because, like, when you go to the pride parades, they be having half-naked as men, and you be having kids there too. You know,
Yeah,
like,
Yeah, I don't.
I'd say that's too far.
and then you got drag queens that some of them are actually convicted sex offenders reading story times to kids. You know, when they shouldn't be around kids. It's
See,
sort of
yeah,
like
no.
I'm
So I
okay
know
with
exactly which scenario you're speaking of.
yeah,
So basically, the school did not do a thorough background check on this person,
exactly.
and
It's
that's
like, uh,
dangerous.
but it's also the thing is of a drag culture, like drag culture is like it's like fetishized. It's not like a kid thing. It's something that
No, it's not a child
it's
thing.
the same
That's
thing.
the
Like, for
thing.
example, with the twerking is not for kids. Twerking
Twerking is
in the
essentially
Caribbean is a
sexual
foreplay.
movements. Yes,
It's foreplay in the
it is
Caribbean.
foreplay.
It's foreplay. You know, like when a grown ass woman twerks and you see her butt cheeks jiggling, like that's hot, but that's not something a kid should be doing. Because no one should be looking at a kid's butt. No one should be looking at their booty. Like, no,
No, I was
no,
going to
that's
mention
a no
earlier
no.
as well. I saw a comment on the Cuties trailer just by Map Lover 69 that said, "But it's so fucking hot, though."
Oh my God, what?
Do you know what a map is?
Yeah.
No.
A minor attracted
Um,
person.
Oh my God.
it's
Okay,
it's
this
a, it's
guy.
a politically correct term for
A politically correct term for
Pedophiles.
child molester.
I mean,
Worski.
if they ever get recognized, you know, the positives is I'll be able to know who's who. So that way, when I go on my crusade and start smashing pedos' heads into their into the fucking ground, it'll be a lot easier.
Andy Worski and Chris Hansen together.
Yeah, Adam Worski
Oh, Adam Worski, sorry.
to break into Netflix after he's ravaged Hasbro.
Okay, no. That's a reference so vague. I'll be surprised if anyone in the chat gets it.
To make like a movie where it's like a half dead Hasbro employee is like
But
he
please,
stumbles upon the doorway of Netflix. Yeah, you guys have to prepare. Adam Worski's coming. Adam Swarsky. He's like, who's Adam Worski? And
what do you
he
mean?
like
No.
dies, and he just dies. Like, Adam Worski. Who is
Who
this
is it?
Adam Worski
They
guy?
start looking up and finding like old news clippings of all the paedophiles he's hunted.
You see him
Mate,
wearing the ears. You see him around his neck wearing all the ears of all the pedos.
what is this Witcher?
Like he has all the ears.
He's like a
fingers.
witch. He's like a witch.
This reminds me of the meme I just saw today. Imagine Chris Hansen being at like the Oscars. I think it was the Emmys or the Oscars, and being like the host there.
Just sitting down and just being like, please take a seat.
Everyone.
Yeah, and then everyone just starts sweating. But let's try to bring it back to the topic. B&M. It's funny. I was looking up. Someone was claiming that they were a Marxist organization, and it does seem to have been founded by Marxists. And there are several videos of Black Lives Matter supporters saying we are trained as Marxists.
Really, I did not know that.
Apparently, if you go on their website and look at their goals and their aims and whatever else, they basically outright say that they're anti-family. They're against the family unit as it's patriarchal and oppressive. And so Black Lives Matter seems to be actively against one of the main reasons for poverty, which is, they want...
Two-parent household.
Yeah, exactly. They want to reduce that as much as possible because it's oppressive somehow. Having a good, loving family is oppressive now, according to the Marxists.
I think it's either 75 or 65% of at-risk youth actually do not have their fathers present in their life, and that's a big factor. So they're actually, again, like what I said
they're
before,
actually exacerbating the issue.
They're literally shooting themselves in the foot.
Yeah, And so,
and it really shows that they really don't care about Black lives. They really don't. Because also another thing, here's one thing I want to point out. They be getting lots of donations. Where does that money go to? Does it go
That's
to
one
Black
thing that
schools?
it's
Does
not
it go to
transparent.
cities?
yeah, no, if you have a look,
Like,
it's all.
you look at Baltimore, you look at Detroit, you look at all those cities, and a lot of Black people, they live in like
Imagine if there was an
horrendous
initiative that.
conditions.
Yeah, imagine if there was an initiative to, start little communities or whatever. And
But
you could fund a whole town.
If you look at like, let's say in Florida, I see a lot of Black people driving a lot of really nice cars. Like, I'm talking like expensive, like Land Rovers,
Yeah, they probably do all
like
right for
expensive
themselves.
Chryslers. But like Florida is like mostly like, that's one thing my dad pointed out. Let's not put some wind cuckery here, but like my dad pointed out, like, hey, have you noticed how like in Republican dominant places, like, you see Black people living a lot better than these Democratic states?
Well,
That's true.
what Trump's campaign is running on. Basically, I heard that he bought out loads of YouTube ads, and so what's funny is a lot of YouTubers are lefty and were going, like, pulling their hair out, saying, "Why am I getting a mid-roll ad from Trump? Thanks for the money, Trump, but fuck you, Trump." Where they basically, he's paid YouTube to run a huge ad campaign. So I'm surprised no one's seen it yet, where it basically says
YouTube's lefty as hell. Like, they be banning all sorts of people.
Exactly.
Shadow banning. But like,
they took his campaign money.
They don't
yeah, so
But one thing
that's what he's been saying.
He's
basically been saying that all of the Democrat-run cities are among the worst cities in America. So why?
And to go back to Pepe's point, one thing is that I'm sure y'all have heard of 21 Savage and Terry Crews. Obviously, Terry Crews.
Hello, my name's 21 Savage. I never told anyone I was British. I'm actually part of M16, MI6.
M16. I'm part of M16. I'm an M4.
But going back to that point, people like 21 Savage have made extreme impacts in their communities just by being one person and donating and allocating their money and time into a community for the betterment of itself, and donating for children's programs in schools and building infrastructure.
And that's how you do it, because if you've got sort of an organization built around a movement that is, like, held somewhere in time, like, there's a certain issue with police brutality right now, but when that's solved, I bet you any money, like any sum of money that I can get my hands on, that Black Lives Matter will not dissolve at the point that their original goals have been met, because no political movement ever has. They just carry on and just complain about different things, and so you probably just get it turning into just a larger or more broad movement where it's just this identitarian, Afrocentric movement that, says that everything is awful all the time, and it's all the fault of people that hate you specifically because they're racist.
Now, so what I was trying to say is, how 21 Savage has done great things for his community. If BLM is such a large organization and has the possession of so much money that we also do not where it's allocated.
It's got no focus. Just a broad sort of. If you're an individual who's rich, you could, direct that money however you wanted. And if there were a lot of people that were rich, then they could do that. But it does take, the will of that person to do it. You can't just build a system that relies on the patronage of the rich to function. But when it comes to fixing or equalizing things, it would do, the rich well to create a more stable system overall and ensure that there are, consumers to buy their products. Otherwise, they won't be rich for much longer.
Exactly. Yeah, it's just like whenever I see all that shit, it just shows like the irony and like like you got a lot of them are Marxists, yet you got a lot of them selling merch and shit, just making money off of
Yeah, like I have
The
noticed
system
as
itself,
well.
the capitalism system
No,
itself.
You
none
got a
of
lot of them
these
supporting Joe Biden, which is
none of these
also
lefty
irony.
YouTubers actually run a cooperative. Weirdly enough, they're all the sole owner of their enterprise, even if they have employees. Isn't it weird how they feel that their idea would be better run by them than just by, whoever? I have this
Yeah,
weird
exactly.
notion that their work, their art that they've created and have a vision for would be better run by themselves than just a random gaggle of leftists that seem to
So
want to
not
be involved.
so I would like to clarify that I love the platform of, yes, Black Lives Matter, there's a problem going on and whatnot.
Of
And
course.
not to shit on it too much, I have
And
friends
it
that
would be
even say,
ridiculous to say that Black lives do not matter. Like, what a horrible
exactly.
thing to say.
But I have friends that are very inclusive of anyone that wants to be a part of Black Lives Matter. But when you actually look into the creators and co-creators and the people at the top, it just seems like the message is not the same as the people, the popular people, the regular people actually supporting it and going to the protests. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well,
Exactly, because a lot of people, they have sort of the insinuation, the thing is, like, let's go with two things, like anti-fascist and Black Lives Matter. They're really catchy slogans. It's sort of like I take a certain message that I know people can't criticize,
oh
because
yeah,
if
if I call myself the
them,
super good guys that do no evil, and then people are like, I'm against you, and it's like, you must be a bad guy that does evil. What? That's crazy. Like
it's sort of
we're
like that,
anti-far, which means that you must be far if you're anti-far, because the antis cancel out, which means you're a fascist.
So that's what a lot of people don't really understand. Like a lot of people, like I said, it's like I do believe Black Lives Matter. What
And
I
a lot of
don't
what I aim to do is just
believe.
sort of like carve out a neutral space, because you've got people on either side that are basically demanding that if you don't actively support our side, then you're an enemy. And that's just what do the lefties say? Toxic behavior. You can't create a well-functioning society if there is. I mean, they always talk about safe spaces and whatever else, right? How can you
There's no
have?
such thing as a
How
safe
can you have?
space.
Yeah, there's and what we were talking about with the media and entertainment earlier. There's no escapism anymore, or at least it's getting very thin on the ground. Before, you used to be able to pick up a book, escape to a elven realm, and learn about whatever the hell, right? But now you pick up a book, you watch a movie, you play a game, and you're just hammered over the head with modern day politics. Why? Why can't I have a game about some ridiculous bigot back in the Middle Ages that just hated everyone that was foreign and just hated women with a passion? No, everything has to conform to our sort of frame of reference right now. And you get artists hounded all the time for just like creating stories or doing things their own way, because it's like, oh hey, you're a black woman, you can't talk about the Latino experience, or you're a this, you can't talk about that, or
Yeah, exactly. I've had people do that where I remember when people were talking, let's say like the N word. I was all I said was like, I think no one should say it. Like if it's that much of issue, I think no one should
oh
say it.
yeah,
Problem
and
solved. Then
then
they're
you
like,
get
oh no,
so
you're
many
not
issues
black.
off just that. Yeah,
You can't. It's not your call. I'm like, I'm not making a call. That's just my opinion, and they're making a whole fucking big deal out of it.
yeah, but you
And mind you,
can't
this is like
dictate to me.
friends.
It's like, I'm
And this
sharing
is
my
friends that
opinion.
I personally know, and I was just basically okay. Like either it's not okay,
Or
either
it's
it's okay or it's not okay. Because the thing is, why are you giving so much power to a word that you're trying to take power from others? Just there's no reason. Like if
well,
you make something taboo, you're
yeah,
just gonna make
absolutely.
people want to say it even more. it shouldn't be a thing that only black people could say this word.
Well, as a
You know?
Brit, I only really take offence to slurs if it's actually said in anger, because the amount of times that you just get like, "Oh, you Cockney wanker," or like, "Oh," because the British Isles, it's just full of people that have been fighting for thousands of years, and we've come up with a few names for each other. You fucking betcha, right? So. But then we all unified, and now we're all one country, right? And so there is still some animosity between, some people. Some people carry it on, but a lot of the way that we've gotten over the animosity and united as one country is by, weirdly enough, a process of normalization. But it's positive normalization. It's normalization of each other's differences. Where if we're allowed to say whatever we want to each other, then nothing gets left unsaid. And if nothing gets left unsaid, then there's no resentment, because we know what we think about each other. We know that they think I'm a fucking southern fairy, like weakling fucking city boy, with his posh accent, fucking, etc., etc. And then the same goes the other way around, where you could be like, "Oh, you northern bastards, you don't know what you're talking about. Haha, go shag a sheep," etc. There's so many different things, and we all just rip into each other.
Do you guys remember Vanessa Gillian? I think that's her name.
No.
The Fort Hood soldier who was, I think she was raped and then killed and buried.
I didn't know her first name. I just knew her as Private Gillian. Yeah. Oh God. Yep. Yeah. There's a lot of that goes on as well.
So what I was trying to say with that is, with Vanessa, a lot of people I would see on my timeline are saying, "Oh, they're protesting about George Floyd, but what about Vanessa?" And I posted on there. There was another one right after that came up on my timeline that was like, you can actually stand up for George Floyd and Vanessa at the same time. Don't use Vanessa to demean George Floyd. Don't use George Floyd to demean Vanessa. It's possible to stand up for both, and when you nitpick and choose and censor
I find
everything,
that with mass media, only one thing does get focused on. That's why I think we need a more decentralized media where lots of people are talking about lots of things, but as a news cycle generally will only have a couple of topics a day, and if it's the George Floyd riots, then of course George Floyd is going to get focused on a lot more than anyone else. But as we are coming up to the end of our 2 hours, I believe we've got a few minutes left. Let's actually bring it back round to the actual topic. And so let's summarize. We've talked about a lot of ways that, anti-Western values and culture has been pushed into various areas. One of my favorite couplets of words, which is what we've been talking about for a while. So how does this relate back to Yuri Bezmenov and the new Call of Duty?
Yuri Bezmenov, his 4 steps of how communism would take over the United States or whatever, it definitely, the 4 steps does show. It's not, you can't put concrete evidence on that, but the symptoms of it and the chronological events of the history of the United States do support his theory or do support his claim.
So would you say that it wouldn't have been possible for him to make these predictions in 1984? Or could he have just been making stuff up and following current trends maybe? Do you believe that he was telling the truth? Do you believe he was telling the whole truth is another thing, because he's an ex-KGB agent?
Exactly. He could be telling some truth. He could be telling no truth at all. He could be telling all of the truth. But the thing is that he died in 93. So he actually didn't see what he prophesied to be fulfilled. So one, that also adds to, how does he know that this would also be the end result of it? What was it? Normalization?
Yeah.
How normalization would actually be
well, that's because he was talking about I remember him mentioning something about some other country in Eastern Europe where the dictator came and ended the civil war that was happening, took over the nation, and was like, now normalization has occurred, or something like that. Do you remember that? And so he was referring back to communist practices in other countries. He wasn't just like reading from the KGB handbook. He was also referring back to actual events that had happened.
Actual events that happened, and one of the events I can definitely confirm was Bangladesh. He also said, what other countries?
Afghanistan.
Afghanistan, yes, Afghanistan.
So, Pepe, what do you think? We've got 2 minutes left. How do you feel about Yuri Bezmenov and, of course, the new Call of Duty game? Are you hyped for that?
Actually pretty hyped for it because I actually, even though I'm not like a fan of Activision or like Call of Duty itself, you know, like the old school Call of Duty, yeah, but like Modern Warfare was really enjoyable, and pretty fun. And then just seeing that trailer pretty much put chills up my spine because that's what I've been saying, that's been going on. You know, like we have the pandemic, like I said, like with this pandemic and just people being complete fucking dipshits. Any country could just come in and you know, just fuck us up. You know, we're really vulnerable just because we have a lot of people that are just fucking smooth brained.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's pretty right about what's going on, you know. And if you go to like a lot of these universities, especially Ivy League, you have a lot of professors that are brainwashing kids, giving, you know, these sort of ideas. And also the fact that a lot of people don't know what war is. They've never been through war. Like when you see a lot of veterans that are that call these kids out.
Yeah, that was what I was going to say as well. Like, it was
them,
speaking
you know,
to veterans that made me anti-war.
And then it's like, oh, you guys are racists and all that stuff, and it's like a lot of these veterans seen shit. You know, but then again, you have a lot of veterans that never even been in a gunfight. They've been in there, but they've never been in an engagement.
Yeah.
You know, but it's like people don't know war. They don't know the brutality of it. You know, even though I haven't been in war myself, I've seen people get shot.
No,
I've
absolutely.
seen people get murdered. So it's like I know.
Partially part of it, yeah. You could imagine expanding that out into just a general
like, to
chaos.
Be honest, a lot of
and
people
plus,
are just pussies. They're
no, that's the thing, but that also plays into the Yuri Bezmenov thing with the food and everything else. Like, do people choose to be pussies? Probably not. Who wants to be a pussy? But if you're a rat trapped in a cage, you can't really do much about that.
Right, and it's like the thing is like I couldn't imagine like if let's say if someone were to invade, but right now like if someone were to invade, a lot of these dipshits wouldn't survive. They'd be crying like, you know, they'd be shitting themselves.
But the thing is, like, if they manage to invade, that's the point, because America is the strongest navy in the world. It would just like slap off any like Chinese navy just comes barreling towards Los Angeles,
and then they just in the armed forces. I'm talking about these civilians.
Like, I know. I'm saying that that's the strength of America. Like, even though it's got this soft core where all the people are like, America's like notoriously got a lot of people, ditzy people that don't know left from right. And like, if you go down the street and ask people where is America on a map, they'll like just point to like Asia because it's the biggest continent or whatever. You got a lot of people that just are not educated, and it's like this predator prey thing where America is a very, very safe place. And so naturally, without any predators, you know, any animal would put their guard down. And so they shouldn't put their guard down because there are actually still a lot of dangers in the world. But in like Denver, in like deep internal America, like you're hardly going to run into like any invading tribes or whatever anytime soon. So you could probably chill out a bit, you know. Even the same for like much of America, because it's got the navy that it could just, you know, create a shell that nothing can come in. But that's why the communists went, all right, the Americans are pulling ahead of us in terms of weapons research. So, oh God, and their economy is pulling ahead too. What can we do? Well, we'll need to subvert the populace, or we'll need to weaken them internally, or we'll need to make them willingly put down their guns themselves, or whatever it is, you know. But on that note, we do have to wrap up now. So, any final thoughts? Make it like 30 seconds, Nita.
Well, I think that the new Call of Duty game is a revisit to our history, and hopefully it'll be beneficial for those who play it, and also entertaining, hopefully.
Hopefully it's not a cash grab with like microtransactions and just, it's sort of hyped up sort of thing.
Yeah, you better not. Yeah, if Call of Duty, you better not. Like, if you do that, I'm not going to buy your game. Like, I might be talking about it now, but I'm not going to buy your game if you put in microtransactions and loot boxes and whatnot.
Right.
But anyway, this has been another episode of the Jim Domino Show, and I'll see you next week, guys. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.